We are live.
Okay. Good afternoon, and a very, very warm welcome to all the delegates, all the panelists, and very special welcome to our special guest for the afternoon, General Dr. V.K. Singh, retired Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Road, Transport and Highway. We also have with us Ritu Pandey from Heavy Industries Ministry, and obviously the panelists you can see are from various companies who represent consulting companies as well. I have with me Vineet Agarwal, who is also the Senior Vice President of ASSOCHAM. And before I kind of, start the ball rolling, I'll just take, with your permission, sir, just to kind of, put the whole thing into context. You see, when we walked into this lockdown, I don't think we had the best of the debt to GDP ratios in our favor, and neither did we have the fiscal deficit, which was slightly large. Therefore, we have very little room that is available for us to maneuver around and create very large packages as are desired or are being expected. However, with the Honorable Prime Minister's announcements of the 20 lakh crore package and the contents of which the Finance Minister has kind of given over the 5 tranches that she did, I think we've had answers to quite a few of our concerns. And the more important part is not just the financial impetus that one is getting, but I think the more important part was also the reform angle that has been added and which will have a long standing impact on India. And therefore, it is also very important that this process of reform continues, because like it is said, any crisis is an opportunity and we should not let this crisis go a waste. And we need to ensure that we make the best of this. We restructure ourselves as governments, whether center or state, and also as industry, so that going forward, we build the best possible opportunity for this country. This is a dynamic situation, and I'm sure a lot will evolve. The phase is not yet over. I will think it will continue to be in front of us, and industry will have to kind of work with the government to ensure that we get better and better and better, and we get back to work as early as possible, because the economy will only grow if it stands on its own feet. It is more sustainable that way, rather than just financial impetus is given to it. With these words, may I now request Vineet ji, the Senior Vice President, to address us, and then I will request Rahul to make his short presentation, and I will follow the sequence thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak ji. It's my pleasure on behalf of ASSOCHAM to warmly welcome General Dr. V.K. Singh, Honorable Minister of State, Minister of Road, Transport and Highways, to this seminar today on the impact and opportunities for the Indian automobile sector in COVID-19. I also like to extend my warm welcome to Srimati Ritu Pandey ji. She is the Director, Ministry of Heavy Industries and Public Enterprises, and all the other key members who are speakers who are here, and our fellow delegates. The time has come that I think slowly these welcome addresses are going to go out of fashion. So I would clearly keep this brief. I think the auto industry has gone through the number of challenges that it has, possibly no other industry has in the last few years, from the goods service tax to the shift towards shared mobility, the axle load reforms, the shift from Bharat Stage 4 to 6, liquidity crunch, and now COVID-19. So because of this, this has had absolutely a multiplier effect on the industry. It has been in a complete lockdown and in a state of truncated demand, and almost all the supply chains that are currently running in the automotive space is either broken or severely disrupted. So we run several supply chains of all the automotive companies, whether in the 4-wheeler, 2-wheeler, tractor, earth-moving equipment space. And we are seeing that this has created a massive crisis where inventory is either stuck in the pipelines, or there are places which are falling under containment zone, red zones, etc., which cannot open up, and hence it's not completing the entire supply chain and creating a huge amount of issues for companies, both at the supplier level and at the OEM level. According to various reports, the vehicle production in India is estimated to go down from anywhere from -10 to 25%. So in this circumstances, even the transition to BS6 looks extremely difficult. The industry has been asking for several things, and I have several of my colleagues from the industry to talk more about that, including things like GST cut and so on and so forth. So I would leave it to them to talk more about it. I think this is the time that we would love to hear from you, sir, at the appropriate time to share light on how to look forward for the Indian auto industry. With these words, we thank you, sir, again to come here today. And over to you, Deepak ji, for the next steps. Thank you.
Deepak, you're on mute.
Logistics are something that have been disrupted because of this lockdown. The entire machinery has to mesh once again for it to work synchronously, and therefore there is a lot that needs to be done to ensure this interconnected, highly aligned and efficient industry starts and finds its feet once again is extremely important. May I now request Mr. Rahul Ganjal to please make his presentation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So it's a pleasure to present to you. And ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to summarize in 5 minutes a crisis that's shaken the entire world. Well, different parts of the world are at different phases of this crisis. We are lagging behind some of the other regions that are either on the top of the curve or at the end of the curve, which means different places are behaving differently and are seeing varied responses to this issue. We, coming to the auto sector, we were fairly depressed last year, and some of the issues that have been talked about by Deepak just now and also earlier have resulted in a contraction and were putting pressures, BS6, axle load norms, etc., etc. So there was pressure across segments. At least that's the background to this topic. We ran surveys with the industry, and we found that the overall sentiment at the end of this or through this crisis seems to be extremely negative. We have almost 80% or more than 80% of respondents of the automotive industry who are uncertain about the future. More than 60% are having income loss. More than 50% of respondents are, where the consumers are concerned, they have delayed their vehicle purchase decision because of financial uncertainty. What will make them buy? 95% of them are saying that incentives will help them buy. And more than 90% of the consumers still seem to be not devolving their choices. So they're saying, we'll hold on to the segment that we were buying in. But the overall mood across manufacturers, across consumers, seems to be negative. This pain, as was mentioned, is deep. We are looking at a minus 19 to 33% contraction. This pain is across the three large platform segments: two-wheelers, PVs, commercial vehicles, all of them getting impacted significantly. The pain is also spread over a longish period of time. We're going to have fairly bad 2 years. And that leads us into this projection, which clearly shows that one, the pain is not only deep, it will be very long. And even 2 years from now, we may not see a full recovery of the market. So the market by the end of another 2 years would have partially recovered, but would not have come back to the trajectory that we were expecting it to go at 4 months ago, and we had invested in and planned for that growth path. Will it recover to the projections that were made 2 years ago? Maybe in 3 years. So the situation is very dire. The situation is dire not only for platformists, but also for auto components. Look, they were already under pressure from product line profitability issues, end-to-end process optimization issues. They had cost pressures at sales, procurement, manufacturing, engineering, SG&A. And on top of it, now they have COVID impact, which puts additional costs, reduces labor availability, significantly increases risk, and has massive cash burn issues, which is starting to impact the suppliers piece. In the backdrop of it, we are seeing not only us impacted, but everybody else also impacted. So as they say, every crisis has a silver lining. The silver lining is global production is shifting. Instead of China being one major global hub that was predominant in this region, we are starting to be seen as an alternative to China. Global supply chains are giving away to local supply chains, which are more based on local warehouses and reserve strategies. OEMs, global OEMs, are will have to build now where they sell. Fortunately, they were already doing that in India for most of them. But they will see a reduction of complexity. They will have to go for a reduction of complexity. They will have to increase their efficiency, and they will have to bring in risk. So there is an opportunity for India. But to get to this opportunity, Indian OEs and suppliers and the dealers will have to go through multiple complications. There is a different demand pattern. There is changes in workforce. Inventory levels are very low. Capacity utilization as it is also very low. Supply base itself will shift. And of course, there is new health and safety requirements and production downtime that's starting to impact. So where does that leave us? Apart from the very top of mind considerations about returning back to profitability by ramping up volumes, the other key considerations that we think the auto industry needs to consider and which might be backed up by the government are: one, supply chain reorganization. They would have to get out of this over reliance on a single manufacturing hub and maybe leverage and try to see how much they can get from this exit from China opportunity that's coming across. We are starting to see the entire automotive industry, OEs and suppliers, focus on digital as a big play across the value chain, ranging from design to sales. And so a lot of that will get pushed in. And this would be coupled with automation. Now, there is a slight challenge here. Automation is great for countries where there are lots of people which are not available, or there is a shortage of people. Western economies are examples of that. But automation in a case like India will put additional job pressures on this sector. So, but across the board, automotive OEs and suppliers will have to go through some degree of automation. So we need to find a way to manage and bridge this gap. We will have to get into a model where we are running more data-driven, predictive things so as to be able to get even a few weeks of head start vis-a-vis other regions, other countries when the next crisis hits, because this won't be the last crisis. This is one of the crises, and the frequency and the intensity will only increase in the future. And last of all, we'll have to go back to our traditional model of mobility, autonomy, digital, electrification, the four themes that were driving this sector, and push the momentum on that. So that, we believe, is the end product. We work with everybody across the board, and this is a feedback of this entire industry. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I think in 5 minutes, this sets the context of where we are and what this segment hopes to achieve. Back to you, Deepak.
Thanks, Rahul. I think you have set the context. Though any crisis of this nature, it's human tendency to mushroom up and start seeing the doomsday scenario, and therefore all of us, that includes me, starts going on to the minimal way of living, and therefore the first things we do is we start postponing. And as we look back, when it was end of March, I'm a very different person as I'm in the middle of May, or let me say the 20th of May. When I look at the health infrastructure, the way we were and the way we are, I think there's an urgency of people to go back to their jobs. I think on the supply side, the government has done quite a bit, though there could be a lot that needs to be done, but there's done a lot of it, and they've taken care of the rural economy. And just to give you some data points, I think 14% of the agri economy takes care of the 49% of the jobs. and all the impact that has been made by the announcements of the finance minister is going to kind of take care of that demand on that side of it, and maybe expand that. I don't say that people will start buying motorcycles or Naveen's electric vehicles tomorrow, but yes, there is going to be a shift in the way farm mechanization and the way rural India works. There would be some demand and shifting that would come in. So coming to the high-end vehicles and higher-end products on the private space, they may take a hit, but definitely on the logistics side, you will see much more demand expansion coming up. I don't know. There are some suggestions which are coming through, so I'm not going to touch them right now. But I'm going to very quickly go to Ashim Sharma from Namura to come in with his comments briefly into the discussion as to what Rahul has just said and what Viniji was mentioning, and then connect it to the next person, please. Thank you.
Ashim, you're on mute.
Asim, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely fantastic.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So quickly building on to where Rahul also left off from, I think clearly the automotive sector being one of the biggest employers in the Indian industrial segment, employing close to about 3.7 crore people, contributing 7% of GDP and 49% of manufacturing output. It certainly needs a push at this stage. We would see it on two parts, the demand side as well as the supply side. I think demand side, we would think that something similar to a scrappage policy that we've seen have positive impacts on the industry in various global regions where it's come should be something that should be thought about at this stage, because it might help bring in the necessary amounts of volumes that are needed, and also maybe a rethink around the overall GST that is there. On the supply side also, I think quite a few things would be needed. We already are seeing that some sort of a restart of operations is being allowed. I think we will have to increase that more. One of the reasons being that the automotive industry is probably one of the most organized amongst sectors. So in terms of implementing the strict protocols that are needed from distancing or hygiene perspective, they will be in a very good position to do that, and could actually be the flag bearers for the whole manufacturing sector to also emulate in the short and the long run. This is also very important from another perspective, that especially on the component side, we also do a lot of exports. Probably on the COVID curve, many other Western nations that we supply to have peaked, and they have started opening up their economies, for example, in Europe. And now we don't want their assembly lines to get starved because we are unable to supply parts from here. So from that perspective also, it's very important to look at reopening of our component sector as well. Another thing that I would like to stress upon is I think the industry had made a lot of investments as far as BS6 is concerned, and now this dip has come in. This has created a lot of pressure. Therefore, whatever future regulations we have in mind, whether it's CAFE 2 or other regulations, I think a roadmap should be developed in close coordination with the industry to ensure that whatever new regulations are coming, they do not act like major discontinuities for the industry, especially when it is in a cash-strapped position right now. We also heard and also saw in Rahul's presentation that due to geopolitical realignment, we do see opportunities emerge for India, as many people might want to shift to India. I think there it is very critical to look at two aspects, three aspects rather: EVs, electronics, and also tier 2s, tier 3s. A large part of the future of manufacturing will also depend on how much of an electronics and an EV component ecosystem we are able to build in India. There, I think there are a lot of opportunities that are there for India right now. For example, countries like Taiwan, where people want to want to collaborate with India and set up a supply chain. I think those opportunities should be capitalized on. Also, it's very important to build the tier 2 linkages, because those will ensure that there is an ecosystem available for outsourcing even by the tier 1s and also by the OEMs. And that is how we also take a dominant position in the export value chains in years to come. And that is more so true for electronics, the content of which is set to increase, both on account of EVs and also increasing electronic content in connected vehicles and also in engine electronics, etc. And last point there is to also look at carefully the tool and gauge industry. I think that's one industry where we've been lacking. It's the mother industry and forms the foundation for many, for not automotive, but also for other industries in the country. And it's important that we build upon the clusters that have been created for this industry, so that more and more tool gauge manufacturers, also from economies such as Japan, Korea, Taiwan, are able to form linkages here. And that would also in the long run help our overall automotive industry. So those are some of my perspectives on both the demand and the supply side. Thank you.
I think, Ashim, thank you so much. Those were absolutely bang on. Make in India, I think, is something that has to be the keystone for this entire value chain capturing of by us in this country, and therefore ensuring clusters, ensuring capacity, trained people, low cost capital, and land plug and play facilities be made available. Honorable Minister, is the priority for the country, not only for the automotive sector, but when I'm talking to all sectors, I think this is one common thing that is coming through in all sectors as to how we can utilize this crisis, and how do we actually benefit from this whole space. So this is one. And another thing which came to what I also heard just a bit was it's about the crisis, and these crises are going to go only bigger, and their frequency is only going to increase. And therefore, it is extremely important for, as a country, as a state, as a central government, as industry bodies, we all are planning for this business continuity in our business models, the de-risking of the entire thing. And this is a cornerstone by which companies would decide their strategy. And therefore, as a country, we need to really work hard to ensure that we benefit from this de-risking of the entire value chain and the supply chain that one is talking about. So that's from me. So let me now get the young man Nishant. I understood just got married last year, so I just heard that as young as that. So Nishant, over to you.
So good afternoon, sir. I think your presence gives us a lot of confidence what the government is trying to do for supporting the sector. And we as a company have been at the forefront of manufacturing electric vehicles in India and producing automotive components in India and all across the world. So I think this is a very opportune time, and like one of our co-panelists shared, that clearly there has been a clear focus around developing India as a manufacturing hub, and automotive is at the core of that. So I think if the government is able to support the companies in these times, and seeing that how, like in EV, the complete phased manufacturing program has been brought in, how that can be accelerated, and the government is giving support on technology, on building the infrastructure and funds for investing in technology for Indian companies. And there are many American and European companies who are looking to collaborate with us in India and relocate their supply chains from China and other Southeast Asian countries to India. So that would be a great opportunity at this time. So people are looking for more clarity on electric vehicles, on seeing that how all the different technologies of IC and electric would coexist in times to come, and India becomes a base. And as we heard earlier, Niti Aayog was working with your ministry and DHI also to see that battery manufacturing can move to India, and that India can become a global hub for that. Simultaneously, sir, as we heard about tools, dyes, and different kind of electronics, so in different clusters, a lot of work is going on. There are a lot of startups which are there in this space, so they need the support of the government at this point, because many startups are dying down. They're burning a lot of cash, and they really need to be supported. And a total ecosystem perspective is required here, because only with the ecosystem perspective, where different companies, whether MSMEs or larger corporates or startups, would need to work together to be able to convert this challenge into an opportunity. So simultaneously, a lot of local companies are part of global supply chains, and if they're exporting there, that also helps us bring in right level of forex and develops India as not a low-cost country, but a technology leader in several areas. So that is the need of the hour. And so I think the most important thing, sir, today for the whole ecosystem, which you understand very well, that if the government could push further for also the demand creation, because that kickstarts the whole ecosystem together. Each and every player is working on those lines and is able to see whether we as OEMs or tier ones or other key supply chain partners could work together very clearly. And then whether it's GST optimization, so that's a request we have given from our side, from SIAM also, and from ACMA also.
Nishant, you just froze. So, hello.
Maybe he
So
dropped.
I think
Maybe we can move on. Yeah.
Nishant, we just kind of lost you, so we will connect back with you. So I think EV is the way forward, and it is sustainable. It has all its benefits, and therefore, I mean, there's no need for me to actually talk about it. But getting the supply chain right, getting the cost of the battery, the charging infrastructure, these are the various aspects of EV that one is trying to talk about, and money that could be spent on how we can convert from lithium ion to any other source, aluminum based. I don't know, we may be 10 years ahead, talking ahead of it, but the point is that batteries need a lot of funding support and research and development, which I think companies need to be supported with, so that they can come out with solutions which will be really, really efficient, and therefore we benefit from it with all the minerals and resources that we have in the country, and opportunity to support the global supply chain with some innovative ideas like this. So may I request Naveen Munjal to take stage and take from where Nishant left.
Thank you, Deepak. Good afternoon, sir. It's an absolute pleasure being here today. So I'm just going to talk about the EVs and what EVs can bring to this country. So when we look at this post-COVID or during COVID, basically what this has brought to us is a very clean environment. So we've never had our country in such a clean manner. We've never had earlier, prior to this, and even as late as February, we had 12 of the 15 most polluted cities in the world were in India, and now barely any of those cities actually make the cut. So our pollution levels have gone down dramatically. Now, so when we look at EVs, one classic mistake that we make is we look at EVs as a whole, whereas you have to actually break it up into different baskets. Two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, so cars, and public transport all have different requirements. What requirement of a two-wheeler is very different from that of a car in terms of the infrastructure, charging infrastructure, the batteries, the way the batteries are used, and the way the vehicle is used. So right now, if you look at post-COVID time, where we are going to struggle as a country to actually, in our urban centers, to actually get the people moving on public transport. One, from a health standpoint, and second, if you have to maintain any level of social distancing, then our public transport cannot possibly handle the volume of people that we are going to get. So there is, so I'll talk about the suggestions post this. Then there is also the FAME policies. We've got FAME 2, which is going on right now, which could have been more effective. The intent is there, but it could be more effective. And when we look at various reports, even Ashim was talking about it and Rahul was also talking about it, that in the EVs have a tremendous opportunity right now. And within EVs, the low-hanging fruit is your two-wheelers and three-wheelers, which will form the bottom of the pyramid, basis which cars and everything else is going to fall into place, because that will give the large volume. India effectively is a two-wheeler market. So if I look at some suggestions from our side, one is in the FAME criteria at this point, there are certain criteria in place which make the EVs very expensive. So technically for a two-wheeler, we are actually supporting the premium end of the market or the lifestyle products and not the mass products. If we have to get mobility to people and they're going to shy away from public transport, as a report was done about 2-3 days back, which said that most of the people are wanting to shy away from public transport at this point of time, and even shared mobility, then for them to switch to EV becomes a logical form, or it becomes very easy for them, because the cost of running is much lower than that of any other vehicle. The battery replacement happens 3 or 4 years hence. Charging infrastructure is not required in the same manner as is for cars. Batteries are swappable and can be removed and plugged in and charged at your home and then plugged back again. But those vehicles, which are the lower cost vehicles, which are the targeted at the masses, are not supported by the various policies at this point. So those are disadvantaged at this point, and I would love to see those being included in the policy. Second, very important factor is that financing of to electric is very low at this point of time, and some kind of a push is required. And we also require if the government can actually start talking about it as possibly as a part of the Swachh Bharat Abhiman program, because what EVs are bringing to the table is actually cleaner air than any other form of transportation. So those are my suggestions, sir.
Very clearly, anything that can bring clear air is Swachh, and Swachh Bharat is the line which it answers. So maybe requesting the minister once again that it could be considered to be a part of it, and therefore it will definitely increase its usage and its adaptation. So with this, I'm just quickly going to check if is Ritu there, or Nishant, were you able to join back? Okay, so there are some questions that I have. I thought before I would request you to address all of us. There are two which are kind of. I have about 20 pages with me, and all of them have these two common top points, and which also were mentioned by Asim and even Vinitji for that matter. One is, sir, that in this era of demand, which is kind of vanishing, डर गए हैं लोग, तो इसलिए सिकुड़ गए हैं लोग, खुल जाएंगे थोड़ी देर बाद, but by the time they'll get the confidence. But the point is, what can we do to spur the demand side of things? Is it possible for us to review GST as holistically rather than only talking automotive? But I mean, it's just not the automotive. While I'm on a session with automotive, but I think whether it is white goods, basics, people are. So if there is a pull incentive, which Rahul just spoke about, given to people, it can. And therefore, SHM has been advocating that can we consider 50% cut? In any case, there is no buying that is happening, so therefore there are no taxes that are going to come through. So if we cut 50%, there is incentive for people.
Yeah.
And maybe over a period of 3 months or 6 months, we could reduce it down. I mean, the numbers could be 50, 30, 40, doesn't matter, but it has to be big enough for people to be incentivized. In the case of automotive, if that is brought down from 28 to 18, would bring in a lot of liquidity into the whole space, and also people would kind of see a 10% reduction in cost. There are examples where people are also saying, sir, the road taxes for 15 years, if that could be reduced, so that brings down the acquisition cost down. Scrappage policy is something that people spoke about already. So if that could be considered, and including the, it really does help at this stage of time, and therefore we are definitely wanting to listen to your views. And Nishant is back. Nishant, you want to finish, or I had already requested the minister to take on his time. So maybe I'll pick up your points when we're taking the questions. So back to you, Honorable Minister. As always, look forward to what you have to say. So you're on mute.
Let me put my time on.
We are able to hear you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Can we check the audio for you? नहीं सर, आपकी आवाज आ रही है सर. You can go ahead, sir.
आ रही आवाज?
एकदम फर्स्ट क्लास और बुलंद सर.
Okay. Firstly, thank you for organizing this on the platform of ASSOCHAM, where we could get all the people together, and I can see you've got a large number of participants in this webinar. We also have many captains of the industry where the automobile sector is concerned, and a topic which I think has been hogging limelight for quite some time. It is not that it is just COVID which has probably made things slightly more difficult, but the automobile industry has been under stress for some time. Now, couple of things before I actually say something on the subject proper. We need to cope up with this situation, not from the point of view that it is going to go away in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month. I think it is going to stay. We are dealing with a living virus. This virus is going to remain till we all develop some immunity, whether that is by vaccination or it is natural, but that immunity has to come. Then only we will feel comfortable that normal things will remain. One more thing which has happened is that this also has changed few things the way we have been doing business. I think as we have gone into this lockdown period, lot of many things have come out where maybe we can make our own things better. We could have been holding this meeting in a 5-star as ASSOCHAM organizes it. I think the future is this. Let's sit in our own places and talk to each other, and more frequently. Your budgets will go down, you'll save. It is true for many things that are happening now. And I think we need to incorporate that so that we can make our systems slightly better for the future. I always tell people that the virus is very egoistic. It will not come to you if you don't invite it.
Right, sir.
You invite it, you flout the common rules that should have been there, it'll strike. And then it becomes difficult. We are lucky that the country hasn't seen the type of projections that there were. I think a country which has a population of entire Europe, USA, Brazil, and Argentina combined, so many countries involved, there is one country which is trying to cope up with it, and it has done pretty well. And I think that is all because each one of us, each one of you has contributed as a citizen of the country. And I think more is to be done so that we don't allow it to go wild and out of proportion. There are many things that have to be done. Now let's look at the economy part. Very rightly, economy is not just dependent on what the government does. Economy is dependent on many other factors. At the moment, we have gone into a state where it needs to be kick-started. And after that, the various other forces need to take over. Now, the financial package is only to provide that little incentive, to provide that little thing. And then as things go, then we need to look at how we can improve things. Whether it is the GST regime, whether it is the tax regime, whether it is how the other things are brought down in prices so that you become competitive, whether it is the labor. It's a number of things which you need to look at if we want to actually come into a very competitive market. But this situation which is existing today because of the COVID-19 is also giving us opportunities. And those opportunities are in terms of two major things. One, we need to look inwards and say, can I do this at a cheaper cost in India? Two, how can I become attractive for joint ventures and become a manufacturing hub? Now, these two things must occupy us and we must plan for it, work out a schedule, a plan, way of doing things so that we are able to make use of this opportunity to bring things to here and you to become much more competitive than anybody else in the world. China is competitive because it has got a bonded labor. Will it remain so? I don't know. In our case, Labor requirements are different. You are a welfare state. In a welfare state, you need to look after welfare of everybody. Therefore, how do we do cost cutting? Now, I think that needs to be thought of more in detail than a normal talk that we all do, because that is what will get us the results. I'll give you an example of apparel industry. If you go to any large mall or a shop in the United States, all cheaper goods are from China. Indian apparel occupies a place of pride, higher end, fashion garments, better quality. We are not in that lower market which keeps getting flooded. Now, is that a model that we can apply, or is it something else that we need to look at? Now, these are many things that are available, which I think now we have got time to look at and think out that with these measures that the government has taken out, whether it is banking, whether it is moratoriums, whether it is assisting various other sectors, how will it impact you? And if it is not impacting you, what is it that you need to? I would look at it that way. I'll be very frank with you. I'll also give you another example. Long time back when Toyota, now this is from the automobile sector, Toyota tied up with the DCM, and there was somebody I knew who was in this thing, and he said the Japanese were very, they were talking amongst themselves. He was an interpreter, and he said they were talking amongst themselves. This country is great. They haven't changed a door handle for the last 35 years. I think we can do a great business. What does it tell you? It doesn't tell you, negative things. What it tells you is the market is looking for different things. Are we able to understand the market? And if we are able to understand the market, then we can leverage that market. If we are not able to understand the market, then we will continue in the same path and the demand will not go up. If Hero has gone on to total electric, I think they are looking in the distance, because I think if that is the future, why not start today? Can we make things cheaper? Can we make things which are not dependent on lithium, which is going to be controlled by one country mostly, which has looked 50 years ahead and went and occupied all places wherever lithium was being produced? How do we get out of that? So these are the things which I feel need to spur our thought, which need to spur our actions, so that we can get this industry back in a better form than what it was earlier. The market certainly needs liquidity. You require demand so that you can promote manufacture. Now, all these things have to have small little things which push these. And for you to manufacture and gain from that, you need to look at what in this whole package is going to give liquidity to people. If it is targeted at raising a particular section of society, mind you, the moment their aspirations rise, it is going to affect you, whether it is two-wheeler or whether it is four-wheeler. I mean, you take some of the places where the realty business boomed. Most of that money went into what? Oh, वो 5 गोले वाला कार खरीद लो, Audi. Okay. No, we need to look at it. I think we need to look at what is it that will make gains for you. And I very strongly feel that we require more innovative solution out of box. You can't go on the same mode. We are not going to gain. What is it? I mean, what can we do to let's say rejig the transport sector so that it increases your demand? Many things that can be done. And what is it that can spur the exports of various types, small to big? I think there is a great potential that is there, and we need to take the best of the practices from rest of the people to see how we do our business. And I'm a firm believer that there's no other business in the world who can beat India. Nobody. And that is why you have a footprint all over the world. Anywhere. And that is something, if that is our strength, I think we can rebound, we can regain, and we can come out of this present state of despondency that prevails. You know, where the ministry is concerned, I might as well talk about a few things. We did a number of things during this period, whether it was how to look at the tolling system, you know, stop the tolls initially, how to assist the transport sector. We spoke to the transport unions so that the essential goods can be carried. Then we looked at, if we are going to start the activity, let's start the activity from the transport sector. Non-essential goods can go, which means your warehouses to open up, your ports must function properly, your airports must function properly, and there are all kinds of things which are attached to it, which keep coming up. Somebody spoke of the scrapping policy. Well, we are hopeful that within a month we should be able to publish the draft policy for authorized vehicle scrapping thing, and put it in the public domain so that we can get comments on it before we make a final thing. So we are trying to see how best we can help the various sectors that are concerned, especially the automobile sector. And there were certain things which the automobile sector wanted as part of things which we have, some of them we have already agreed to, like your first aid kits, your AIS external projections, your Form 22 for BS6 vehicles, etc. All those which you have proposed, those have been agreed to, and others also will get agreed to, because we are also concerned that automobile sector going down means it is going to have a tremendous impact on the economy of the country. And therefore, we need to assist you. I won't use the word handhold, because you are all grown-ups as an industry, okay, not as individuals. And I think what we can do is to assist you in charting your new course, charting your new path, and taking on this challenge that you have to emerge as a winner. I would also suggest that let's, from time to time, come up with various things ideas that you get. Let's talk about those ideas and see where we can take it. Where is it that you require governmental intervention? Where is it that you want support from some other industry? What is it that can help you if the MSME sector gets assisted? We are trying to ensure that liquidity in the market comes fast. Like in the road sector, every month we have decided we'll give the contractor his money for whatever work has been done. So money will come out. We are ensuring that the small contractor gets his money. So you will find that I think these small little things slowly will add up. And this is what will make things more positive than what they look today. So with these, let me wish each one of you the very best. And I'm sure ASSOCHAM will steer everybody for the bright future that awaits from the darkness that we have gone into in the automobile sector. And I'm very positive. Things will look up. It is now for us to kamar kaske, right? So for us to tighten our belts and say, okay, let's do it. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, sir. Really nice to hear you. I will now try to bring everybody in. So we have another 10-15 minutes, so we will not let you off. We will take the full bank for the time that we have taken from you. So just to very quickly, sir, talk about the textile and garment example that you took. I think India has all its life focused only on cotton-based fabric. And therefore, we have only catered to that bit of market, which is called the summer market. So we never did any man-made fiber, and therefore we never were present for any of the world trade. So there is a way of thinking that is to change. That why would we not cater to the market, and why would we cater to that little market? So that's a great point that you bring about, sir. Thank you very much for that. Another point that you have made about this releasing of bank guarantees for infrastructure developers and people, because that's somewhere, with the amount of work done, bank guarantees getting released, it's a great step by the ministry, and I think there's a lot of stress that will go off the developers, which is so. While one is talking about getting digitized and coming to the ministry now again, sir, why there is a need for a physical inspection of a at RTO anymore for a vehicle that has already been type approved by ARAI. Everything else is digital, and this is the only space which is left, which is physical. And with the current scenario, and like I said, given the COVID scenario, you need less people there, so therefore this should be done away with. And obviously, it helps you to do ease of business for all the logistics people. Vinitji, your views on that, and then I'll request the minister to take it.
Let me just butt in here and say that see, the problems arise when you have concurrent jurisdiction, and there are certain things which are in the state purview and there are certain things which are with you. We can lay down a policy, implementation is with the states. The RTO comes under the state. So a lot of times, best of intentions can get torpedoed, to use a military term, because state interests are on something else. And that is why this particular department has acquired a notoriety over a period of time for various reasons. I think thinking is already there, how to get these things done in a manner in which it will bring ease to everybody. Right. So this has been a point that we have been thinking over it, but then you always get stymied because you can't step onto state's jurisdiction, and that's a big issue.
You're right, sir. The suggestion there, sir, could be that the fitness can be done in any state. So instead of coming back to my original state where I got the first fitness done, if that fitness is allowed to be done in any state, so whenever it's traveling now, the truck can be anywhere. So I think those are things that can be looked at and perhaps easier to invent.
Whatever, that's why I said, you give us what you feel is good for everybody, and believe you me, anything that is logical, anything that is rational, anything which is going to help people will be implemented.
So that's great, sir. One other point that we noted out was that you are coming out with the policy. So we are looking forward to it, and obviously we'll comment there. So I have Nishant with me, and Nishant, you were trying to close your points when we had a disconnection with you. So would you like to finish what you were saying?
Sure. So, sir, I think your address was very motivational, sir, for all of us. It really encourages us to see the positive side of it and really move forward in a much stronger way. So the other point is, sir, from my side, as you are aware that from the SIAM side and FADA side, we have been working very closely with the Ministry and Supreme Court for the approval of the vehicles, PS4 vehicles, which are lying with us, which were to be registered in the last 3-4 days of March. So, sir, there we would look forward to your support, sir. Otherwise, the industry would be going through a huge loss, and we have lakhs of vehicles across all segments there. So, another point from my side is that, sir, in few countries, what has been considered is that when different organizations are looking to purchase electric vehicles, so that has been considered as a part of CSR. So because that is enhancing sustainability overall. So that is something which the government could consider, that could propel the growth of electric vehicles, which is in turn leading to sustainability in the country. And now with the lockdown, since all of us are used to the clean environment, I think, sir, that would be a very move in the right direction. And definitely at a total cost of ownership perspective, even today, the number of moving parts are reducing, sir, from about 1800 moving parts to 18 moving parts in an electric vehicle across the board. And with fast charging solutions and other solutions, sir, I think all of us will be contributing towards it. So if a holistic view can be taken, sir, that will be very helpful, because many organizations are keen to look at it. And if some kind of benefits can be passed on to them, which are indirect incentives in these ways, would kickstart, as you rightly said, the EV segment. And so for the automotive segments, sir, in such cases, if the scrappage policy is coming out in the next 1 month, the drafts, I think, sir, that will bring in a big boost to our automotive sector. So I think those were my points, sir. And so just a small point that for EVs, sir, a lot of investment is being made, sir, in skill development. So because we don't have the requisite manpower, people coming from the automotive sector, power sector coming, sir. So if some special initiatives can be given, whether it's my organization or Naveen's organization, or many such organizations are investing heavily into skill development and after sales areas, sir. So this could generate huge employment for people and can really bring in a very good wave of very strong competencies which we need to build in the EV sector. So we are dealing with very high voltage parts and the vehicles here. So that would be my request for your consideration, and really seeing that how together industry can work and ensure that your vision which you have taken for this sector, for the automotive sector and the EV sector in times to come, can come true. And I think, sir, all the other points have already been shared. So look forward to hearing your thoughts.
That's great. So what I'll do is very quickly to connect back on the EV space only, very briefly, Naveen, may I request you to share points before I go to Vinitji and Rahul and Ashim?
So just our point is that there is an opportunity for EV sector to expand in India and to grow, and India become a hub for manufacturing of electric mobility at a global level. I agree with you entirely about the raw material coming. So, but it doesn't stop Indian companies either from researching and finding minerals in our own country or going and buying mines outside. So that said, there is the government push, and we are very thankful to the government and MOHI for the push towards FAME 1 and now FAME 2. All our submission is that the FAME 2 policy, which is there right now, especially for the two-wheelers, is a bit selective in terms of the higher end of the mobility of the vehicles. Whereas the people who actually need that subsidy, we're not asking you to increase the subsidy, but just include the vehicles which are going to be used by the masses. And these are the people who are going to be using these vehicles far more than the lifestyle vehicles. So all our suggestions, all our recommendation is that please include these low-speed vehicles as well. We are already on a path of localization, but because the volumes are small, it takes time. So just give us some more time to localize, and that's it. So the supply chain would fall in place in India. So the intent is to be a completely local economy, sir.
So Rahul, to look at what Naveen just said, sir, is that if the larger chunk of people are going to use something which is not covered, so it'll be more polluting, it'll be less environment friendly. So therefore, if more is spread on the spectrum which is large, I think it will also impact your environment. Viniji, you'll have to just wait one more. I will get Rahul very briefly in, and Asim, and then I will come to you for your final comments. Rahul, go ahead.
So I have just two requests that I think we hear a lot from the industry. The first is that the zones impact different parts of the industry differently. So industries that are in red zone and confinement zone, they seem to be really, really struggling operationally. So maybe there has to be some government impetus to helping the auto sector, because since it's a global supply chain and very nationally spread supply chain as well, even if some zones are stuck, the supply chain as a whole fails. That's one issue. The second is, from a global perspective, other countries are introducing simpler measures like providing manufacturers with cash that helps them to sustain wages for a certain period of time. So we, as an industry, whilst I know we are not seeking direct cash subsidy in as many words, but some sort of support is needed to ensure competitiveness of Indian industry, which has been taken 40, 50 years to build, is not lost. So these are my two questions and suggestions for your consideration.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Asim. Very briefly, your comments. You on mute, Asim.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. So I think briefly two things. One is, clearly, I think, so you also mentioned, it's not just going to be cost competitiveness. I think in future, people are going to look at India from the resilience point of view of the supply chain. And we have to prove that we have resilient supply chains here if we are able to suffice all the orders that we have today. For that, it will be extremely important that the supply chain which is scattered across the country is made to restart, whether it's easing restrictions in some zones or it is providing the necessary amount of capital which is also needed, especially by the smaller suppliers. And the second thing is, apart from scrappage that you already said you're looking at, I think for the EV value chain, it'd be very important for us to also take some concrete steps so that a lot of these small manufacturers that are out there are interested in forming JVs with the companies in India so that a vibrant ecosystem for EVs can be established in the country and also for electronics.
Absolutely beautiful. So, Aseem, when the minister was speaking, he did speak about JVs, he did speak about manufacturing hubs and how we plan looking forward. So, these are things that minister has detailed when he was talking. And before we come to the minister, I will now interact with Vinitji, who is also the user of highways. He provides logistics to each one of you to run your supply chains, and therefore his experiences as a user of automobiles, as a aggregator of automobiles and user of highways, the tolls, and your feedback as to what you think is what we started at, what we are, and where are we heading? A directional thing from your side, please.
So one of the things that is very essential is the ease of doing business in the country has to be better. And one of the things for our competitiveness of our industry, of the automotive industry, is the cost structures need to be managed better for the entire logistics supply chain. How do we bring down the overall cost of logistics? One of the important things here, sir, which we have also recommended in the past, is how to bring fuel under GST regime so that we can claim input credit. A truck that is moving with cargo for all companies today, 40 to 50% of our cost is fuel, and we get no input credit on that, and hence it has an impact on the overall cost of the transportation. Secondly, sir, the cost of toll has gone up almost 2.5 times in the last 6 years. It is something that we have been mapping for the last few years, and in the cost of operation that has gone up substantially. I know that toll should help us in moving the trucks faster and hence better speed and efficiency and productivity. But I think it's sort of a chicken egg situation right now where one is trying to catch up with the other. We're getting better roads, but we're getting better roads on certain stretches of highways, but the entry and exit to cities is still congested. And because it is congested, my total time that is taking has not reduced, or my speed has not increased dramatically, or to that effect of that cost that I'm paying extra. So these are some other ideas, and again, I think my fellow panelists have also said a lot about what needs to be done in terms of directly in the auto sector. But this is broadly speaking on the overall supply chain of not just the automotive sector, but of nationally on how it can be impacted. So, thank you.
So may I request your responses, please?
The most interesting part is that most of what you all have said is already under consideration at various levels. We are already working on these. In fact, we are also trying to find an answer as to how to ensure that a vehicle which moves from place A in India and goes to place B, it takes the least possible time. What has happened is that after the electronic system came in, the mindsets of people in the various states hasn't yet changed, and that is where we find it difficult. So we are trying to bring in measures which will ensure that once you cross a toll, after that you should not be stopped, and if you are stopped, there's only a designated place where you have to be stopped, and there would be a system where the driver can inform that I'm being stopped for some reason. So all these are already being churned out, and we will come out with measures very soon so that we can make things that much better. I think you must have heard Gadkari ji say a number of times that we are looking at, especially on the Delhi-Mumbai expressway that is being made, as to one lane having facility for vehicles which can run on electricity, so you can save on fuel. The haulage can be much larger. So all these are already part of measures which will ensure that your transportation costs come down. And also it allows you to get into business of a different type of fleet altogether, so that it becomes that much better. And in any case, the way we are trying to promote the logistic parks, which will ensure that your larger vehicles dump the things in the logistic park, in the warehouses out there, and after that carriage into the cities is by smaller vehicles, like it happens in large number of countries in the world. So that will also help the larger vehicle transporters, and also spur growth for smaller haulage vehicles. So these are, in fact, whatever you have said, it is something which our people in various groups are already working on, and we hope to have a solution and a suitable thing which we can then see that it doesn't get stuck by the various other rules that exist. And if some rule is trying to be impediment, how to remove that rule so that we can ensure that things move smooth.
Perfect. So thank you very much. I think we have done our time. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We had a lovely interaction. Is there anything else somebody would want to say, or else I would like to make a concluding
one point
remark.
from my side.
Please.
Just one. Sir,
Please
just one point, sir. I see that all the STUs, sir, are under a lot of pressure today, and they need a lot of support with the total cost of ownership, since public transport is subsidized, sir, across the country and most of the parts of the world. So, sir, if we could mandate, sir, a part of the STUs, probably a couple of percent or 3-4% fleets to be converted to electric, so that will help them in reducing the total cost of ownership substantially, sir. And similarly, in different commercial activities, whether home deliveries or in other areas and other commercial activities, if we mandate a small percentage for electric, I think that will go a long way in taking the industry forward and making the country independent, and really they would benefit on total cost of ownership, sir. So that is the only request I had from my side, which could be instrumental in
Nishant, thank you very much, sir. And with this, I also get another opportunity to say, in defense manufacturing, the finance minister has now said that there will be reservation for Indian industry, that we will buy from India. We will not be able to, and this is in complete confidence with the armed forces, because our people need to be completely in agreement as to this is right, and because we can't compromise, and not going beyond that. So my point is, can we not actually implement what Nishant just said? Can we make EV in e-commerce, in food supplies, in QSRs? Can we make it little as mandatory for organization as a CSR activity, that this much is mandatory? Like we said, so many people, men, so many girls should be part of the workforce. So these are areas maybe which would definitely help us to ensure that there's more adoption, and state-wise there will be more infrastructure developed in a calibrated manner on the charging side. Naveen has already spoken about the requirement of a two-wheeler is very different from a four-wheeler and a truck. Gadkari ji has been speaking about a new alignment from Bombay to Delhi and Delhi to Bombay, where all kinds of fuel will be available, 6 kinds of fuels on a bunking station. So you could use a diesel, use a charger, bus, or for that matter, anything. So this would also go a long way to structure our state infrastructure. So finally, sir, which everybody has said before, I'm again going to repeat, sir. Automotive industry has been the most well-managed, advanced manufacturing industry, which is interconnected with various clusters across India. And most of these clusters are fine in green and red zones, but some of them are in red and contaminated zones. But if their parts don't reach, if you have a car, you have everything ready, but if there's no driver's seat, or there is everything and you don't have a driver, that piece is of no use. So therefore, we must request you again, and we would request you to push your weight behind us to get this entire supply chain of automotive industry open, because a small component can stop the whole factory. That's one. Number two, sir, these factories are very difficult to restart. It's not easy at all, sir. It could take 15 to 20 days for one organization to actually restart their manufacturing on the ground. Even if there is a case of COVID in a factory, there should be regulations that it need not be shut down again. It is that it should be level, raised to another level, and sanitization and whatever needs to be done, those protocols could be written, and therefore they are in a better position to run their factories and not head for these should be treated as process industries and not as just manufacturing industries. A chemical plant can't be shut down for reasons like this. So these were our submissions to you, sir. Thank you very much to all my panelists. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for spending this time with us. We always look forward to your guidance, and thank you for always supporting us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, each one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Over and out.
Thank you.